Lyra stood at the edge of the landing ramp, her silver-gray skin shimmering under the gentle rays of the sun. The spaceship, a sleek vessel of gleaming metal and pulsating lights, stood as a testament to the advanced technology of her people. As she descended the ramp, her movements graceful and fluid, a hush fell over the gathered crowd. Her deep blue eyes, like pools of liquid sapphire, took in the scene before her with a mixture of awe and trepidation. The high school campus sprawled out in front of her, a labyrinth of brick buildings, manicured lawns, and winding pathways teeming with life. Students moved in clusters, their laughter and chatter creating a vibrant symphony that echoed in the crisp morning air. Banners and posters fluttered in the breeze, welcoming the new academic year and, inadvertently, the new alien student. At the base of the ramp stood a delegation of school officials, government representatives, and curious onlookers. The principal, a tall, bespectacled man with a warm smile, stepped forward to greet her. "Welcome to Earth, Lyra. We are honored to have you here at Lincoln High School," he said, his voice carrying the weight of formality and genuine warmth. "Thank you, Principal Harris. I am excited to be here," Lyra replied, her voice soft yet clear, tinged with an accent that was both melodic and otherworldly. Standing a little apart from the adults was a girl about Lyra's age, with bright eyes and a welcoming smile. She waved enthusiastically, her brown hair bouncing with the movement. "Hi, you must be Lyra. I'm Emma, your guide for today," she introduced herself, her voice bubbling with excitement. Lyra felt a surge of relief at Emma's friendly demeanor. "Hello, Emma." "It's nice to meet you," she responded, her lips curving into a smile that seemed to light up her entire face. With Emma by her side, Lyra began her journey through the bustling hallways of Lincoln High. The interior of the school was a sensory overload. Lockers clanged shut, students chattered in rapid-fire conversations, and the faint scent of cafeteria food lingered in the air. Lyra's senses, attuned to the subtle nuances of her own world, were bombarded with new and unfamiliar stimuli. Emma led her to the principal's office, where Principal Harris gave a brief, welcoming speech. His words were kind and encouraging, emphasizing the significance of this cultural exchange. Lyra listened attentively, her mind a whirl of thoughts and emotions. The anticipation of what lay ahead both excited and unnerved her. The bell rang, signaling the start of the first period. Emma took Lyra to her homeroom, where Mrs. Thompson, a kindly middle-aged woman with a nurturing aura, introduced her to the class. "Class, this is Lyra, our new student from a faraway planet." The reaction was immediate and varied. Whispers and gasps filled the room as Lyra made her way to an empty seat beside Emma. Some students looked at her with wide-eyed wonder, while others exchanged skeptical glances. Lyra could feel their eyes on her, a mix of curiosity, admiration, and apprehension. Throughout the morning, Lyra attended various classes, each one a new adventure. In history class, she learned about human civilizations, their rise and fall, and the complex tapestry of events that shaped the world. The teacher, Mr. Jacobs, was a passionate storyteller, bringing the past to life with vivid descriptions and dramatic flair. Lyra found herself captivated despite the occasional pang of confusion at the sheer diversity of human history. In science class, Lyra was in her element. The familiar principles of physics and biology provided a comforting bridge between her world and this new one. She marveled at the ingenuity of human inventions and the parallels they shared with her own people's technology. The teacher, Mrs. Nguyen, noticed Lyra's enthusiasm and engaged her in a lively discussion about interstellar travel and advanced robotics, much to the amazement of her classmates. Lunchtime was an entirely different experience. The cafeteria was a cacophony of noise and activity. Emma guided Lyra through the maze of food stations, explaining the various options available. Lyra was both fascinated and overwhelmed by the variety of dishes. She hesitated, unsure of what to choose until Emma handed her a slice of pizza. "Try this. It's a favorite around here," Emma suggested with a grin. Lyra took a tentative bite, and her eyes widened in surprise and delight. "This is delicious!" she exclaimed, earning a chuckle from Emma. As they sat down to eat, more students approached, eager to meet the new alien girl. Lyra found herself at the center of attention, fielding questions about her home planet, her culture, and her experiences. She answered as best as she could, her natural curiosity and openness endearing her to many. However, not all attention was positive. Across the cafeteria, Jessica, the queen bee of the school, watched with narrowed eyes. Her flawless hair and designer clothes marked her as the leader of the popular clique. Jessica's gaze was a mix of jealousy and suspicion, a silent challenge that Lyra could not ignore. The afternoon classes passed in a blur. Lyra's mind buzzed with new information and experiences. Despite the occasional awkward moment, like when she misinterpreted a human idiom or struggled with an unfamiliar piece of technology, she felt a growing sense of belonging. As the final bell rang, signaling the end of the school day, Emma walked Lyra to the parking lot where her sleek hovercraft awaited. The craft, a symbol of her advanced civilization, stood out starkly against the backdrop of cars and buses. "So, how was your first day?" Emma asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity and concern. Lyra smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment and relief. "It was overwhelming, but in a good way. Thank you for being such a wonderful guide, Emma." Emma beamed. "Anytime. I'm looking forward to showing you more about our world." As Lyra settled into her hovercraft, she took a moment to reflect on her day. Despite the challenges and occasional moments of discomfort, she felt a growing sense of excitement and determination. This was a new chapter in her life, filled with endless possibilities and opportunities to build bridges between her world and this one. She was determined to make the most of it, forging new friendships and learning about the rich tapestry of human culture. Little did she know, her presence on Earth was about to set off a chain of events that would test her resolve and courage in ways she could never have imagined. As the hovercraft lifted off, carrying her back to the embassy, Lyra gazed out at the fading school grounds, her heart full of hope and anticipation for what lay ahead. Lyra woke up to the soft hum of her room's environmental controls adjusting to the Earth's atmosphere. She stretched, her silver-gray skin catching the morning light filtering through the window. Today was her second day at the human high school, and she felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Her father, the ambassador, had always emphasized the importance of cultural understanding, but experiencing it firsthand was proving to be an entirely different challenge. Her transport arrived at the school just as the first bell rang. Lyra stepped out, greeted by the familiar hustle and bustle of students making their way to class. Emma was waiting for her by the entrance, her face lighting up as she saw Lyra approach. "Hey, Lyra, ready for another day?" Emma asked cheerfully. Lyra smiled, feeling a bit more at ease. "Yes, I think so." "What's on the schedule today?" Emma handed her a printed schedule. "We've got math first, then English, and after that we have social studies. Oh, and don't forget we have gym today too." Lyra's eyes widened slightly at the mention of gym. Physical education wasn't a part of her schooling back on her home planet, but she was curious to see what it entailed. She followed Emma through the crowded hallways, her presence still drawing curious glances and whispers from her peers. Math class proved to be a challenge. The symbols and equations were somewhat familiar, but the methods and theories were different from what she had learned. The teacher, Mr. Bennett, was patient, explaining concepts in a way that helped bridge the gap between human and alien mathematics. Emma, sitting next to Lyra, offered additional explanations and encouragement, making the experience less daunting. English class was a different kind of challenge. The intricacies of human language, with its idioms, metaphors, and vast vocabulary, were fascinating yet confusing. They were studying a Shakespearean play, and Lyra struggled to understand the archaic language and complex themes. Despite her difficulties, she found the poetic beauty of the text intriguing. By the time they reached social studies, Lyra felt mentally exhausted. The topic for the day was human history, focusing on the world wars. As the teacher, Mrs. Whitaker, described the causes, events, and aftermath of the wars, Lyra felt a deep sense of sorrow. The sheer scale of the conflicts and the suffering endured by so many was difficult to comprehend. Her own planet had experienced its share of strife, but the human capacity for both destruction and resilience was remarkable. During lunch, Lyra and Emma sat with a group of students who were eager to learn more about her. They asked questions about her home planet, her culture, and what it was like to be an alien among humans. Lyra answered as best as she could, enjoying the opportunity to share her world with them. She tried more human food, finding that she had a particular liking for ice cream. "Do you have anything like ice cream on your planet?" a boy named Jake asked, watching her with fascination. Lyra shook her head.
Not exactly. We have a variety of frozen treats, but nothing quite like this. It's very sweet and cold, but I like it.
As they chatted, Jessica and her clique walked by, their expressions a mix of curiosity and disdain. Jessica stopped, her eyes narrowing as she looked at Lyra. "So, Lyra, how are you finding our humble school?" she asked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Lyra met her gaze calmly. "It's very different from what I'm used to, but I'm enjoying learning about human culture." Jessica smirked. "I'm sure. Just be careful. Not everyone is as welcoming as they seem." Emma shot Jessica a warning look. "Back off, Jessica. Lyra's just trying to fit in like everyone else." Jessica shrugged and walked away, her friends following close behind. Lyra felt a pang of unease, but was grateful for Emma's support. The afternoon brought gym class, and Lyra's unease returned. The gymnasium was filled with students stretching and warming up. The teacher, Coach Stevens, explained that they would be playing basketball, a popular human sport. Lyra watched as the students divided into teams and began to play. The game was fast, paced and physical, unlike anything she had experienced before. When it was her turn to join in, she struggled to keep up with the rules and the rapid movements of the players. Despite her natural grace and agility, she found the competitive nature of the game challenging. Emma noticed her difficulty and offered some tips, showing her how to dribble and shoot. Lyra appreciated the help but felt a bit out of place. As the game progressed, she began to understand the strategies and movements, even managing to score a point, which earned her cheers from her teammates. By the end of the day, Lyra was exhausted, but proud of herself for facing the challenges head-on. As she and Emma walked out of the school, she felt a growing sense of belonging. She was starting to form connections and understand the complexities of human life. However, as they made their way to the parking lot, Lyra noticed a figure lurking in the shadows. A chill ran down her spine as she recognized the dark, piercing eyes of a stranger watching her intently. She quickly looked away, trying to shake off the feeling of unease. "Everything okay?" Emma asked, noticing Lyra's discomfort. Lyra nodded, forcing a smile. As they parted ways, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a series of events that would test her courage and resilience in ways she had never imagined. Lyra sat in the school library, surrounded by towering shelves filled with books. The smell of old paper and the quiet hum of students studying created an atmosphere of serene focus. Emma sat across from her, a stack of history textbooks between them. Lyra turned a page of the thick textbook in front of her, her silver-gray fingers delicately tracing the words. The chapter was about World War IE, a dark and tumultuous period in human history. She read about the rise of dictators, the Holocaust, and the devastating global conflict that followed. Emma watched Lyra's expression change from curiosity to horror. "It's a lot to take in, isn't it?" she said gently. Lyra nodded, her deep blue eyes wide. "I can't believe how much suffering your species has endured. We have conflicts on my planet, but nothing on this scale." Emma leaned forward. "Humans have a complicated history. There have been terrible times, but also incredible acts of bravery and resilience. It's part of what makes us who we are." Lyra absorbed this, contemplating the resilience Emma spoke of. "I think I need a break," she said, closing the book. "How about we visit the museum tomorrow?" Emma suggested. "It might give you a better understanding seeing artifacts and exhibits. Plus, it's a field trip for our history class." Lyra's face brightened. "That sounds wonderful!" The next day, the students boarded a yellow school bus, excited chatter filling the air. Lyra and Emma sat together, Emma pointing out landmarks as they drove through the city. Lyra marveled at the skyscrapers, parks, and bustling streets. The museum was a grand building with columns and a vast courtyard. Inside, the students split into groups, each led by a guide. Lyra's group, including Emma, Jessica, and a few others, was led by a knowledgeable curator named Mr. Andrews. Their first stop was an exhibit on ancient civilizations. Lyra was fascinated by the intricate artifacts from Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Greece. She asked countless questions, her curiosity boundless. Jessica, initially aloof, began to warm up, impressed by Lyra's genuine interest. "You know, Lyra," she said, "for an alien, you have a pretty good grasp of our history." Lyra smiled. "Thank you, Jessica. I'm eager to learn as much as I can." The group moved on to the medieval section, where they saw suits of armor, weapons, and tapestries depicting battles and court life. Lyra was particularly struck by the contrast between the opulence of the nobility and the hardships of the common people. "Your history is filled with so much struggle and triumph," Lyra mused. Mr. Andrews nodded. "History is a tapestry of human experience, woven with both light and dark threads. Understanding it helps us appreciate the progress we've made and the challenges we still face." As they entered the modern history wing, Lyra's eyes were drawn to a large display about the world wars. Photographs, letters, and personal items told the stories of soldiers and civilians. Lyra felt a deep empathy for the people who lived through those times. Emma pointed to a picture of a young girl, her eyes filled with fear, but also determination. "This is Anne Frank. She wrote a diary while hiding from the Nazis during World War I. Her story is one of many that shows the human spirit's resilience." Lyra read the excerpt from Anne's diary, her heart aching. Jessica, standing nearby, added, "It's why we study history, to remember and to learn, so we don't repeat the same mistakes." Their final stop was a section on recent history, including space exploration. Lyra's eyes lit up as she saw models of rockets and images of astronauts. She recognized some of the technology as similar to what her people used. "This is more familiar territory," Lyra said with a smile. "Space exploration is something we both share." Emma grinned. "Maybe one day our species will explore the stars together." As the tour concluded, the group gathered outside the museum. The experience had brought them closer, their shared curiosity and newfound understanding bridging gaps. On the bus ride back, Emma and Lyra sat quietly, reflecting on what they'd seen. "Thank you for sharing this with me, Emma," Lyra said softly. "It means a lot." Emma squeezed Lyra's hand. "I'm glad you came. Learning about our history through your eyes makes me appreciate it even more." Lyra gazed out the window, the city's skyline, a testament to human achievement. She felt a deepening connection to her new home and a stronger resolve to contribute to the growing bond between their worlds. However, in the shadows, forces were stirring. The mysterious group intent on disrupting this newfound harmony was watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Lyra's integration into human society was more than just a cultural exchange. It was the spark that could ignite a new era of understanding, or plunge both worlds into chaos. The school grounds were bathed in the warm glow of the late afternoon sun as Lyra made her way to the science lab for her final class of the day. She walked beside Emma, chatting about their latest assignment, when she felt a strange prickling sensation at the back of her neck. She glanced around, but the bustling activity of students hurrying to their next classes seemed normal. "Are you okay?" Emma asked, noticing Lyra's distraction. Lyra nodded, though she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "It's nothing, just a bit tired, I guess." As they entered the lab, the sensation faded, replaced by the familiar comfort of their routine. Lyra immersed herself in the experiment, fascinated by the intricate process of chemical reactions they were studying. Yet, the uneasy feeling lingered in the back of her mind. Meanwhile, in a shadowy office on the outskirts of town, a group of men and women gathered around a large conference table. The dim lighting cast long shadows on their faces, obscuring their features. A large monitor on the wall displayed a series of surveillance images, including several of Lyra at school. "The ambassador's daughter is proving to be quite popular," a man with a deep, gravelly voice remarked, tapping a finger on the table. "This could work to our advantage." A woman with sharp features and cold, calculating eyes nodded. "Indeed, we need to proceed with caution, though. The ambassador's security detail is formidable. The man leaned back in his chair, a sinister smile playing on his lips. We have our ways. The key is to strike when they least expect it. Create chaos, drive a wedge between the humans and the aliens. They need to see that these beings are a threat, not allies. Back at the school, Lyra and Emma finished their lab work and packed up their things. As they walked out of the building, Lyra felt the prickling sensation return, stronger this time. She stopped and scanned the area, her keen alien senses picking up on something out of place. Emma, do you ever get the feeling that someone is watching you? Lyra asked quietly. Emma frowned. Sometimes, I guess. Why? Lyra hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. I don't know. It's just a feeling I've had lately. Like we're being observed. Emma glanced around nervously. Maybe it's just because you're new and different.
People are curious.
Lyra nodded, though she wasn't convinced. They walked to the parking lot together, where Emma's car and Lyra's hovercraft were parked side by side. As they said their goodbyes and headed home, neither noticed the dark figure watching them from a distance. The next day, Lyra's unease continued to grow. She confided in her father, the ambassador, during breakfast. His expression turned serious as he listened. Lyra, I trust your instincts. If you feel something is wrong, we must take it seriously. I will increase your security detail at school, he said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Lyra appreciated his concern but didn't want to draw unnecessary attention. Thank you, father. I'll be careful. At school, the day started normally enough. However, during lunch, Lyra noticed a man in a maintenance uniform lingering near the entrance to the cafeteria. Something about him seemed off, and she couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching her. She pointed him out to Emma, who agreed that he looked suspicious. Should we tell someone? Emma whispered. Lyra nodded. Yes, let's find Principal Harris. They hurried to the principal's office, but when they arrived, the man was gone. Principal Harris assured them he would look into it and promised to increase security around the school. Lyra and Emma left the office feeling only slightly reassured. The rest of the day passed uneventfully, but Lyra couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As she made her way to her hovercraft at the end of the day, she noticed a black van parked nearby. The windows were tinted, making it impossible to see inside. Her heart raced as she quickened her pace. Just as she reached her hovercraft, the van's door slid open, and two men in black suits stepped out. Before she could react, they lunged at her, grabbing her arms and trying to pull her into the van. Help! Somebody help! Lyra screamed, struggling against their grip. Her cries caught the attention of a group of students nearby, including Emma and Jessica, who had been talking by the school gate. They rushed towards Lyra, shouting and causing a commotion. One of the men pulled out a device and aimed it at Lyra, but before he could use it, Emma tackled him from behind, knocking the device out of his hand. Jessica grabbed a nearby stick and swung it at the other man, hitting him hard in the shoulder. The attackers, caught off guard by the students' intervention, released Lyra and retreated back into the van. The vehicle sped off, leaving a cloud of dust in its wake. Lyra, shaken but unharmed, hugged Emma tightly. Thank you, you saved me. Emma smiled, though she was visibly shaken. We're friends, Lyra. Jessica, panting and wide-eyed, approached them. Lyra nodded. Thanks to you both. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been here. The school staff and security arrived moments later, alerted by the commotion. They escorted Lyra and her friends inside, ensuring their safety while they waited for the authorities. The incident sent shockwaves through the school. Principal Harris held an emergency assembly the next day, emphasizing the importance of vigilance and cooperation. Security was tightened, and an investigation was launched to identify the attackers. Lyra's father, the ambassador, was furious. He personally visited the school, demanding answers and assuring the staff that his daughter would be protected at all costs. Despite the heightened security, Lyra couldn't shake the fear that lingered. She knew that the attempt to kidnap her was part of a larger, more sinister plan. The shadowy organization was determined to drive a wedge between humans and aliens, and she was at the center of their plot. As she sat in her room that night, Lyra resolved to uncover the truth. She couldn't let fear control her life, and she couldn't let the antagonist succeed. With Emma and her new friends by her side, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they would face whatever threats came their way, and they would prove that unity and friendship could overcome even the darkest of forces.